This is Ryan Brett Puckett, production designer with The Knife. And you should check out Fame Magazine for more behind the scenes info about The Knife and other films.
Hey everyone, this is Fame Magazine. My name is Savannah Jewel. Today we're sitting down with Ryan Brett Puckett, production designer for The Knife that premiered at this year's Tribeca Film Festival. Ryan, how are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Really good. It's sunny today and I feel good. We're
Those are all good reasons.
right, exactly. Thank you so much for talking with me today. I know there's like so much going on behind the scenes for like any project, especially like a feature film. So I'm really excited to dive into that with you. Um, I really want to talk about like the behind the scenes mostly with you, of course. Like, and so in The Knife, like the house plays a crucial role in storytelling. So can you walk us through like the process of selecting the unique period home and what made it a perfect fit for a film like this?
Um, for this one, as we were like thinking about options for locations and houses, a big part of the story is that the family has just moved into this house and it's under renovations. He's trying to make a better home for his family as they grow, and maybe doesn't have a ton of money to do it, and so he works in construction, and he's really smart about how he can uh, do a lot of this work himself to make a great home. And so when we were thinking about it, the logic was kind of like maybe he would have found an older home and maybe an older neighborhood in the city that they're living that was a place that he could afford um, on his meager income, and use resources from his work and just his skills with his hands to start renovating it over time to make it a better place. And so it kind of fell in this idea of it definitely being like early 1900s era home, somewhere up to the 50s at the very latest, and just really wanted something that had a little bit of a style to it. So I tend to gravitate towards craftsman style or arts and crafts homes of like the 1920s and a little bit earlier. And so it just kind of happened to be I was feeling in that direction, and they were looking at some houses that already had that aesthetic. Um, and so when we had our first meetings, I was already kind of pitching towards a house that I'd worked in. And they had already, purely by happenstance, already looked at that house. And so as we were talking about it, he started showing me photos of what they wanted to do. I kind of was like, oh, that's really funny. Here's what I was going to pitch to you, and what I was already thinking about. And it was a space that worked out really well. Yeah, we ended up like scouting it, looking at it. Everybody kind of agreed it worked well, both in terms of the philosophy of like how they got to that point where the movie picks up and we start with their journey, but just kind of aesthetically had a really great look to it that felt right for the family.
What's the process like besides, in this case, you already having a house in mind? What's the process like in like scouting a like uh I guess a home in this case, but a home that is aligned with the time period that you're trying to find? Like, are you looking on Zillow? Is there like a back end stock of
It's
like,
kind of a little bit of everything. I mean, they we had a really great location manager at the beginning of this production that had come up with a list of homes and locations around the LA area that were available, that kind of had the vibe we wanted. Tragically, we passed at the beginning of the production, so we didn't get to work with him. He didn't get to see what we ended up doing with the home. But typically on a film, you would have uh, a scout that's really familiar with the area that, like right off the top of their head, you can start talking to them and showing them photo references. And they're like, oh, I know this guy that's got this house, or there's this place that's available. And you really rely on their talent and their contacts um, in like helping you with the story. Like, they're an important part of, like the art department in the film, and
yeah.
helping you achieve that vision, because they're focused entirely on like locations and finding places that look beautiful on camera, and they'll also have a creative vision that you can collaborate on, and then they'll just bring you things that you might not even ever thought of, that all of a sudden you see it, it's like, God, this is the perfect option for it. And so that was kind of how this one started out. They had like a list of houses they looked at. Some of them were kind of so-so and kind of got thrown to the side. And it was about the time that I got on board. was when we kind of whittled it down to these last two or three places. And it was the one that I had personally already had in the back of my mind. And the one that our director Namdi was already starting to lean to were the ones that we were going with. And so it was a very easy decision to be like, this is the one. We all feel it.
I'm curious, with the director Namdi, how did you like collaborate with them and other team members to kind of make sure that the production design like aligned with the film's visions and themes? Like, I'm curious on how collaborative that whole aspect was.
Uh, Very collaborative. Namdi's an absolute joy working with. His career is really, really interesting in terms of like where he started and how he got into film and acting and producing. And this was, I believe, his first, directorial project. And he'd spent a lot of time thinking about it. And right out of the gate, when we had our first interviews, and then when we started um, chatting very seriously about like how we were going to start designing it, like he had really, really solid ideas and knew exactly what he wanted to achieve with it. And so then if it just became those conversations of like, all right, we know where we need to get with this. Like, what are the steps in between to like building up the design to work really well with it. And our our cinematographer Alejandro Medina, I think he arrived just after I started, and Nambi was really great about making sure we had a lot of pre-pro time to start talking through all these ideas. And so we'd reserved the house, I think a couple weeks before we started production, and so like the three of us would just go out there and hang out at the house, and it was just totally empty, barren, awful colored walls, stuff piled up in corn. We would just sit there and like walk through the scenes and just discuss how we feel the mood is going to be throughout these things. And so it was just a really nice experience in terms of getting to all sort of bond over like the idea of how we needed to make the story happen. And then as we got to about a week and a half out from shooting, we all just kind of like spread out and just started executing everything we decided. And so at that point, like I started bringing on my team, and we spent about a week and a half in the house just tearing it apart and putting new surfaces on top of everything and painting everything and putting in fake walls and replacing windows and just doing everything we could to try to make it a more unique space that worked the best.
Yeah. Looking back on the project in its entirety, is there any like room or scene that you're especially proud of in terms of its design and how it contributes to the overall storytelling?
I mean, when I first sat in the theater right back then, saw it the first time, it was less about any one particular scene so much as finally seeing everything cut together and moving through rooms so quickly over the course of the film, where I was like, it really works. Like it felt like there was a cohesive tone where you believe they were in this house, but then were differences to it all. On just like a personal silly level, the bathroom that gets featured a few times in this as reoccurring scenarios, kind of showing what the character Chris is may or may not be doing that's causing problems. The original bathroom was hideous. Like it was these awful colored tiles. It's actually kind of a beautiful mural that is like all over the walls, and all that had to be protected. And we couldn't paint anything. We couldn't do much to it in theory because everything had to be returned back to the state that it was in. And we spent a lot of time in there completely covering everything with fake tiles, like new walls over the old walls so that we could paint the colors we wanted, completely covering the original sink and mirrors and everything with new countertops and faucets, and pretty much redid everything so it looked like an entirely different bathroom. And it was kind of a silly thing where it was so ugly when we first walked in, and the day before we shot it, when it was done, I looked at it and it's like, this is a really nice bathroom now. It was a funny little win.